This Week in Gaming with Naomi Kyle.
Hello everyone, I'm Naomi Kyle and welcome back to This Week in Gaming. This week we're catching up on Nintendo's latest endeavor. Sony shutters more studios, and the launch of Dragon Age the Veilguard and Call of Duty Black Ops 6 are here and has everyone talking. We've got all of this week's gaming news, so let's get started. EA's latest title, Dragon Age the Veilguard, released last week to high praise among critics and fans of the Dragon Age series. Dragon Age the Veilguard graced several platforms at launch, but the most notable of these is on the PC gaming platform Steam, where Dragon Age topped out at roughly 70,000 concurrent players at launch. Woo! This new record set by Dragon Age shatters EA's previous record for the most concurrent players formerly claimed by Jedi Survivor, with just under 68,000 concurrent players at their launch in April of 2023. EA has none other than Dragon Age's developer BioWare to thank for the game's success. The CEO at EA, Andrew Wilson, has taken note, having said during an earnings call that BioWare has returned to its strengths. Dragon Age the Veilguard sits on Metacritic with a combined critic review score of 84 at the time of this recording. And yes, I've just started my playthrough of the game, and I am also very much loving it. Dragon Age wasn't the only game breaking records last week. Call of Duty Black Ops 6, as reported by Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, has launched as the biggest Call of Duty release to date. Black Ops 6 is doing very well on PS5 and PC, but the main focus for Microsoft is how Black Ops 6 is affecting the growth of their video game streaming service, Xbox Game Pass, where subscribers of the service enjoyed Call of Duty Black Ops 6 on day one of its release. Analysts at the online gaming news outlet GameIndustry.biz predict an increase of approximately 2.5 to 4 million new and returning Game Pass subscribers, greatly raising the numbers needed to maintain the profitability of Game Pass for Microsoft. This gamble made by Microsoft to list Black Ops 6 as a day one release on Game Pass could result in a loss of $6 million in sales, but for Microsoft, the chance at gaining subscribers is well worth the squeeze. Look out, Spotify and Apple Music. A new challenger is approaching. Nintendo has done the unthinkable and created a music app where fans can listen to the industry's most iconic video game soundtracks at the press of a button. Nintendo Music, as they are calling it, is available only for Nintendo Switch Online members. Subscribers to Nintendo's online service can download the Nintendo Music app on iOS or Android devices and begin listening to tracks from their favorite Nintendo games for free. There are over 65 hours of music on the app, and users can pick any number of tracks and curate playlists of their own. Included in the app are soundtracks from 24 games, with a promise from Nintendo that they will add soundtracks from other video games, including F-Zero X, Wii Sports, and Super Mario 64, which, by the way, I'll never understand why the Mario 64 tracks weren't the first to be added. Every track in Super Mario 64 is the best track, except for Dire Dire Docks, which is the very best track. Anyway, the app is great and I've been using it all weekend. Although I can't help but feel that with the release of two very bizarre entries into the Nintendo ecosystem, that being Nintendo Music and their alarm clock Alarmo, Nintendo is just running out the clock, and we are mere moments away from an official announcement by Nintendo regarding their next console. I just know it. Sony is shutting down video game developers Neon Koi and Firewalk Studios. Neon Koi has decidedly been closed after an evaluation of their latest mobile game to reach audiences globally and meet player expectation in the midst of the game's development cycle. And Firewalk Studios has no doubt been shut down due to the failure of their AAA hero shooter, Concord. Concord, as you might recall, was released back in August of this year, and less than 2 weeks after its launch, Concord was pulled from shelves and digital storefronts due to a lack of engagement from consumers. Originally, it was believed that the failure of Concord had cost Sony $200 million, but new evidence suggests that this could have been far more damaging to Sony's bottom line. In a report from the online journalist at Kotaku, sources suggest that $200 million was not enough to fund the entire development cycle of Concord, and that the figure does not take into account the purchase of the Concord IP or Firewalk Studios itself. Unfortunately, this massive loss in revenue has resulted in the loss of hundreds of jobs in an industry that has continued to hemorrhage jobs at an alarming rate. My greatest wish is that everyone who has lost their jobs at either studio find work on a new project that is financially and creatively fulfilling. We wish you the best of luck out there. A user on Reddit who goes by the name On Reddit in Class has done something so bold that I'm having trouble deciding if they're a genius or completely insane. User on Reddit in Class spent over $2,000 on PlayStation Plus subscriptions, resulting in 24 years worth of the service. The Redditor said that they decided to stack PS Plus subscriptions until 2048 because of the absurd price increases over the past few years. And technically, they aren't wrong either. The price of subscription services has been trending up. Netflix increased their prices. PlayStation raised the price of PS Plus last year from $60 to $80 annually, and Xbox Game Pass just raised the prices on their subscription services just last month. So is it so crazy that this Redditor spent $2,000 to lock in the $80 price tag for the next 24 years? Maybe not. Look at it this way. Unless something terrible were to happen, PlayStation is very likely going to still be around as one of the great pillars of gaming. They've been around for 30 years already, so what's another 24? 24 years from now, we will be well into the 12th generation of gaming, presumably waiting to play GTA 7 on the PlayStation 8 Pro, and PS Plus, or something like it, will be around. Personally, I don't foresee a future where we don't continue to have services like PS Plus or Xbox Game Pass, but I'll have more on this subject later in the show during my interview with today's guest, Victor Lucas, so stick around. Over the years, enemies in video games have taken on various forms. Be they zombies, orcs, or Goombas, they are obstacles. And as the game's hero, it is our duty to vanquish them if you're going to get to the game's end. Well, what are you going to do if your in-game enemy is man's best friend? Well, The Last of Us 2 and Call of Duty, for example, expect you to eliminate waves of dogs to get to the end. But digital or not, a good boy is a good boy, and I'd rather turn the game off than send an innocent dog across the Rainbow Bridge. The video game developer Machine Games seeks to solve this gaming injustice with their latest title, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. There are canine enemies in Indiana Jones, but when it comes to the point where you have to shoot at them, instead of taking damage, the dog simply darts away. It's so simple. It's genius. So why the change? Well, the game's creative director, Jens Anderson, said in an interview with IGN that Indiana Jones is a family-friendly IP in many ways, so these are just the kind of things we do. We have dogs as enemies, but you don't really hurt the dogs. You just scare them away. Thank you to the hardworking folks at Machine Games for throwing us a bone. If you're a dog lover too, keep an eye out for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle when it releases on PC and Xbox Series X and S on December 9th. Speaking of releases, it's now time to go over the video games releasing this week.
Games out this week.
On November 4th, Nazar launches only on PC. Tectonica strikes gold on PS5, PC, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. On November 5th, Slitterhead sneaks into early access on PS4, PS5, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. Then on November 6th, Slovak Punk Old Timer is on the case when it hits PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. Mirthwood and TMNT Splinter Fate are ported over to PC. Planet Coaster 2 corkscrews onto PS5, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. And on November 7th, Ants of Empires and Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythm Festival make their way over to PS5, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. Metro Awakening VR services onto MetaQuest, PSVR 2, and Steam VR. River City Saga 3 Kingdoms Next kicks its way onto PS4, PC, and Nintendo Switch. Chicken Police Into the Hive raids the PS4, PS5, PC, Switch, and Xbox Series X and S. Mario and Luigi Brothership team up exclusively on the Nintendo Switch. The Epic Game Store is offering just one free game this week, Deceive Inc., which will be available for download from November 7th to the 14th. PS Plus subscribers can look forward to 3 free games this month: Ghostwire Tokyo, Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharged, and Death Note Killer Within will be free and available to download from November 5th until December 2nd.
Quest complete.
So that's the news for this week. It's now time to chat with our guest. Victor Lucas is back to chat with us about the success of Dragon Age the Veilguard and if buying 24 years worth of a subscription service is worth the investment.
Select game mode. Multiplayer.
Hey Victor, welcome back to the show. We have a brand new BioWare game to talk about. As a BioWare fan, I'm so excited to be able to talk about this with you because I saw your tweets. You've been playing a lot of Dragon Age Veilguard, so I need to know what you think. Is BioWare back?
BioWare is back, yeah. BioWare is, thank you for having me on, by the way. I always love being on the show. BioWare is one of the best developers in the world, and certainly they're a company that has gone through tumultuous change. I don't think you can look at any video game developer in 2024 that's been around for a long time that hasn't gone through major changes over time, and BioWare has been a part of that. They've done the live service kind of foray. They've adapted new technologies. They've tried a bunch of different ways in on finding an audience with their patented storytelling role-playing experiences. But I feel like Dragon Age, the Veilguard, was a concise return to form, like a company that said, look, we have to go back to our single-player, story-driven experiences with rich destinations and rich characters for the players to get to know and to ally with. I do feel that this game has a sense of the company trying different ways into making a Dragon Age game. It feels different from the previous Dragon Age titles, and you can certainly tell it's been 10 years since the last one, that the company may have explored a live service angle or even a multiplayer angle with this game, and you can kind of feel a little bit of that. But it also feels like they had a course correction along the way, and they unloaded the shackles of, the market sort of dictating a direction for this, and they've returned to a form. They've returned to a way to play and engage with this game that feels very BioWare-like, and that's awesome. I think that's fantastic news for the studio. I think people that are playing the game are having a ton of fun with it, and that's certainly been my case. I enjoyed the preview that I had, and then completing the game has been a ride. It's been a real journey. I think it's a terrific game.
Can I ask on what difficulty level you played the game?
I played it on medium for most of the game, sort of the mid-level default setting. I think it's the default setting. I played it on... I think you get to choose right at the beginning which way you want to go.
That's right, yeah.
But I played it on sort of the middle point. But there were a couple of... And I just talked about this in my review on the EPN channel, that there were a couple of spongy bosses that drove me a bit nuts. And if there's one thing that I would hope that BioWare can tune a little bit, I feel like the sweet spot is in between that second difficulty level and that mid-level difficulty for me. And I know there's a lot of Elden Ring diehards out there, even though the play is very different. It's not so much about parrying and timing as it is in a Souls-like experience. It's much more hacking and slashing and magic powers and employing your ally abilities and setting off detonations and all that stuff. I found some of the boss fights were a little long. I would eventually get through them, but I was like, oh my God, I'm just chipping away at their life bar. So I did put it down to the second difficulty level, and then it's way too easy. But the story's so fun, and the fights are cool.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I did the one next to media, whatever that one was. But I also felt, even though it was easy, I was just so happy to be back with some of those characters from Inquisition and to be back in a BioWare game. And I'm just like, I'm so excited to see if BioWare is just going to take this, like what they've built with Veilguard and apply it to their other franchises. Like obviously Mass Effect comes to mind. What do you hope to see next from BioWare given the success of this next iteration, the Dragon Age series?
Well, I think this was a conscious choice, and it probably evolved over time to kind of reboot the IP in a way. I think that there was definitely an awareness that they're going to bring over a lot of lifer fans of the franchise, and they're going to come with their own ideas and their own expectations. But there was also a real move away from the look and vibe and feel of what has come before. And there has been an effort to modernize. And I do feel that as role-playing developers, we saw this happen with Bethesda as well, start to get better technologies, they move towards there being a much more immediate sort of connection to the action that has always been implied in role-playing games. Now the technology can live up to the speed of your thinking, and you can have a little bit more of a tactile, visceral sort of connection to the combat. It's not so much about strategy and sort of whittling away at numbers. It's more about like a little bit more about your reflexes and your skill on the sticks and your ability to think quickly, which may turn off some people that want it to be a little more Baldur's Gate like. But I think that's what the fast read speeds off of the new hard drives, the new SSDs in machines like the PlayStation 5 and modern PCs and Xbox allow for, and the improved graphics processing and all that stuff. You can just have all of these flashy, immediate effects happening as you're pulling off rolls and rotations and hacks and slashes and magic throws. And it's really a lot of fun. And so I think that this is going to strengthen the resolve of the developers of BioWare. We know a Mass Effect is coming. I don't know if this is BioWare in exactly the same situation as they were before. I feel like everything is so large and so precarious in terms of how expensive the games are to make these days, that the sales numbers may have to be much, much larger than they have been before. But certainly I think the reception to this game is very, very strong. I think people are really digging it. I encourage anybody to give it a shot that's ever enjoyed
Truly
these.
Anybody.
Yeah. And then,
or
and
even newcomers to the franchise, I would say.
And I think that was, calculated idea.
Yeah, calculated to make sure that it's not only a beautiful game, but the story hooks you right from the start. And so anyone who's interested in a good story and a game that's can be played on a very easy level is accessible to everybody. And I love that they did that.
Me too. And I love the character designs as well. I know that people aren't crazy about sort of the more animated look. Some people aren't. I love it. And what I sort of picked up on is that a lot of this sort of move to photorealism sort of sets you up for, remaster city, because you're set up in a time when you go photoreal, and then that sort of evokes a date, because when 3 years later it looks old. But if you go, it's a page out of the Nintendo playbook. If you go for more of a stylized animated look, that fidelity, that sort of graphical presentation can stay valid for a long time. And I feel like that's what they're setting up with the Veilguard as well. And if there is a subsequent sequel, I certainly hope there is, or some really cool DLC that takes us in some new directions. I'm all for that, and I can't wait for Mass Effect. And I wish the best for BioWare. They're such an incredibly important developer in the world of games, but in Canada, which is where I'm based.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And you're from. Yeah, they're just so enormously important, and they've contributed so much to the culture of gaming over the years. And I'm just happy for the team. And I hope people are playing it and loving this game. I certainly do.
I certainly do as well. Also, we got to drop a mention at those amazing hair mechanics. How good does the hair look in that game?
I love the whole character creation and the flexibility there. You can almost make a game out of that. And I when I played the game in preview mode, I kept changing my Rook, the character that you play. I kept going to the wardrobe and just adjusting everything. And you're constantly picking up new armor and new weaponry and stuff, and it's all made with a lot of love and attention to detail, and it creates this really cool flow. Like, I've beat the game. It's in my mind. I'm cutting my review of it right now, but I can't wait to get back into it. And it felt weird to end it because I didn't have the best ending, I have to admit.
Oh no!
And so I want to.
Your decisions affect the ending. For those who don't know.
Yes, they do. And it really is about alliances. It's really about making as many friends and connections across the world of Thetis, which is the continent that Dragon Age adventures take place on. You really have to be kind of tactical in the way that you get out there and befriend everybody.
Yeah, it's important what you say and who you befriend. And I love this game. I'm playing it right now. I'm not finished quite yet, but it's been such a ride. I guess switching gears, definitely, we've spent a lot of time on Dragon Age this episode, but did you hear about the Redditor who purchased 24 years of PS Plus to avoid price increases? And I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Oh, I think that's brilliant. Is there any issue with him, using all the codes? It all worked out? It
all seems to be working out. Yeah. So apparently you can do that.
I think that's great. And honestly, I feel like I think subscriptions for software are kind of they're kind of a drag. And I do wish. I mean, in our household, I have a preteen daughter, and she's always wanting to go and check out apps that maybe some of her friends are playing at the moment. And you read about them, and they're all about subscriptions. And if you want to unlock everything, you got to. There's just so many of those out there, and I feel like there's a smart business model, and it sounds like that sounds like Sony's got this, where you can kind of buy a lifetime's sort of license in a way, for a price. And I feel like more companies should do that. I use the Adobe suite, and I hate that they have the subscription choice. I mean, that's the way that you do it. And I always think about, pivoting to another piece of editing software or something like that to avoid that. But then you have to learn how to use all of the tools and stuff. And so I haven't spent the time to do that. But I think if companies offered that, it would be great. Sort of a lifetime commitment price. Or if consumers can figure out a way to subvert the inevitable price increases, I think more power to them. You're really pledging allegiance for a long time to a platform.
Yeah, and assuming PS Plus will be the same and around and all that time. But it was interesting. I thought you might have an opinion about that, because it's just a reality that we're all in. Subscriptions are
subscribing everywhere.
Yeah,
and
part of everything.
There is a tremendous a lot of value, I think, especially in the gaming subscriptions, whether it's Game Pass or Nintendo Switch Online or PS Plus. There's so much content on there, and anytime any parent or anybody comes up and says, "I want to get a game machine for my family for the holidays or whatever." That's the first thing I tell them to do, is just get that subscription for a year. You don't have to buy a game, because you're going to be able to log in and just play lots and lots of stuff that you may have missed out on if you are just getting in right now. And that's a good way to start, And, in the case of the Nintendo platform, being able to go back into 30 years or 40 years of history with that stuff, just incredible. Yeah, I do wish there was a one-time lifer price on this stuff.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
Make the investment. Yeah. But yeah, everybody go play Dragon Age Veilguard, or at least inquire about it. It's a great game. And thank you so much, Victor, for your perspective on that. I'm so glad you finished the game. Everyone should watch your review, get in on it. And thank you so much, Victor. I'll see you in the next episode.
Awesome. Have a great week.
Victor Lucas is the creator and host of Electric Playground Network. You can follow him on Twitter at Victor_Lucas.
Flawless victory! Continue!
And that's This Week in Gaming. I'm your host, Naomi Kyle, and I had such a blast bringing you the news this week. Thank you so much for listening, and shout out to my co-writer, Josh Seaman, for helping me put the show together. Don't forget to let me know what you're playing and what you think of these stories by tagging me at Naomi Kyle on social. From all of us here at This Week in Gaming, we wish you a gaming-filled week, and we'll see you guys same time, same place next week. Chat with you later.
This Week in Gaming is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more podcasts just like these.